AITA for grounding my daughter for leaving her sister with the neighbor? I'm the single mom of 3 kids. Polly, 16F, Trevor, 12M, and Cassie, 8F. I have little to no support. Their father left after Cassie was born. No family nearby, etc. I have 2 sitters that I can call on as needed, and I use them before I'd ever ask Polly for help. I don't want her missing out on her teenage years. Before this incident, I only ever asked her to babysit once because I had no one else, and I paid her $15 per hour. At the time, above minimum wage. This past Saturday, Polly was due to hang out with some friends for a couple of days. Trevor was ill, but testing negative for COVID. That day, he spiked a very high fever and I had to take him to the ER. I asked Polly to watch Cassie as the sitters weren't responding. I apologized that she'd have to miss out on time with friends, but said I'd pay her and she could even have her friends over our place. Polly pitched a fit and asked why I couldn't send Cassie to the neighbors. We don't know them. They moved in last month and outside waving when we get our mail. I don't have a relationship with them. Polly was irritated. I told her I'd pay her $18 per hour and that I had to go. I take Trevor to the ER and we have to wait a bit. Polly kept asking if the sitters responded and they hadn't. Eventually it was our time to be seen. So I told Polly I'd be out of reach for a bit. Turns out, Trevor had a bad case of RSV and due to pre-existing health problems, had to be admitted for the night. I was terrified. When I called Polly to update her, I heard people talking in the background and said, "Oh, you had your friends come over?" She told me no. She dropped Cassie at the neighbors and went out. I was furious. I told her to go home and get her sister. I then asked for the neighbor's number. She didn't even ask for it. Which, I get teenage logic, but still. At first Polly refused until I told her she was grounded. I made her FaceTime me when she got home to show that Cassie was with her. Eventually, my mom was able to make the 2-hour drive down to stay with the girls, but I told her to not let Polly leave the house. The next day, Trevor and I were able to go home. I lectured Polly about what she did and grounded her for 2 weeks. She got mad at me and said that I can't expect her to drop her plans. I point out I never do. But this was an emergency and her brother was sick. She told me that's not her problem. She's also mad because I won't pay her. I apologized profusely to the neighbor who said it was okay and that he would have called me, but Polly didn't leave my number either. Polly said I overreacted. AITA? NTA. Polly left her 8-year-old sister with strangers so she could go hang out with friends while you were dealing with a family emergency. Polly needs consequences for her poor choices here. NTA. Let's get this out of the way. There are a lot of posts on here about forcing teenagers to babysit, and this is most definitely not one of those. This was an extreme situation. Emergency even. And Polly acted amazingly selfish and irresponsible. She left a young child with strangers and exposed them to an unknown illness as an added bonus. Also, considering how the folks around her were sick, it should be common courtesy, sense to not want to expose her friends as well. She is old enough to fully comprehend how terrible and dangerous her actions were, but instead doubled down on being petulant. Not my kid. But Polly earned a hefty punishment and consequences. NTA. And honestly, I'd never be able to trust Polly again. RSV can kill a kid, so God forbid something happen to your son. NTA. I think 2 weeks is not enough of a punishment for this. NTA. It was an emergency. You offered to pay. You offered for her friends to come over. And it's a rare occurrence. It's not surprising that a 16-year-old girl was angry and acted against your wishes. It's also not surprising that she would think you're an asshole. But you're definitely NTA, and if it were my kid, she'd be grounded a while for leaving her sister with strangers and going directly against what you said. I had plans with my BF in high school one weekend when my dad accidentally cut off part of his finger. So I stayed home to watch my little brothers while mom took dad to the hospital. And my BF hung out at our place and kept me company. I don't remember being the least bit resentful that I couldn't go out. I remember being very worried about my dad. NTA in the slightest. You sound like an amazing parent who is trying to juggle so many things at once. I think Polly needs to understand that you only asked her this one time as it was an emergency. Also, I hope Trevor is feeling better soon. My 2-year-old was in hospital overnight at the weekend due to RSV too, as it was affecting his oxygen levels. It's a terrifying situation to be in, so I couldn't imagine the stress you were feeling worrying about your son's health, whilst also the worry of your child being left with someone unknown due to your teenager not thinking clearly. NTA. You underreacted if anything. NTA by a long shot. Being grounded for 2 weeks is generous emo. Has this girl never seen a serial killer or kidnapper movie? You can't just leave a child with strangers, even if they live next to you. And especially without any way of contacting the neighbors? What if your neighbors were psychos or had sketchy friends over? I get that missing out on a hangout sucks. But holy cow, family emergencies come first. She really lacks empathy and common sense, even for a teenager. NTA. These were extenuating circumstances, it was emergency. You compensate her. It's not a regular occurrence, and you offered to have her friends over and apologized. BC, it was unavoidable. Nope, she was acting like a jerk. NTA. This was an emergency situation, and your daughter is old enough to understand that. You don't know the neighbor. She didn't leave any contact information with the neighbor. So many things could have happened. Definitely NTA. NTA. Normally, I'm on the side of, not her kid, not her problem, but it was an actual emergency and you explicitly told her not to leave her with the neighbors for an obviously good reason, and she did it anyway. That's the groundable offense, doing something you explicitly told her not to. If one of the sitters had responded, I'm sure it would have been no problem for her to wait for the sitter and then go out. NTA. But part of her punishment should be watching documentaries on the dangers of trusting strangers or people you don't really know with your kids. Especially ones that center around a teenager who dumped their siblings off on someone like that. It would hopefully open her eyes to the dangers that she possibly put her sister in. She obviously does not watch true crime stories, or she never would have done that. She was irresponsible and deserves to be grounded. ETA. Thank you for the awards. Your daughter needs a wake-up call. If anything had happened to her sister, I really don't know how she would cope. NTA. First, kids have emergencies, and those emergencies disrupt plans. Second, kids get their plans canceled because of situations, just like adults. I remember missing a party because our car broke down, a baseball game because Nana was in the hospital, etc. And I had 2 parents and relatives close by. It happens. Third, Polly had basic plans. Not like prom or something where if she missed it, she would lose out on a big moment. You also didn't brush off that she was having to cancel plans. You handled it with the appropriate apology and offer to pay her and give an alternate way she could see her friends. And finally, this is how family is. It doesn't matter if you are a single mom or not. This could happen to any household. Husband on a business trip. Other kid has a test. Whatever. And I assume Polly wants the benefits of being part of a family. So that means she has some responsibility as part of the family too. She also probably wants the benefits of being 16, staying up later, going out with friends, and that means the responsibilities of being 16 too. Like being someone the adults can rely on. You asked her to step up in an emergency, and she let you down. Not just by saying no, but by leaving her sister in an unsafe situation with zero information. I get that kids shouldn't be parentified, but that doesn't mean free of responsibility. NTA, she was really irresponsible leaving her sister with strangers. If Cassie had been abducted or worse, Polly would have to live with that for the rest of her life. You gave her alternatives and she chose to do what she wanted and put you in a tough position. Does Polly give a care at all for her younger siblings? I mean, one was sick enough to be admitted to hospital and she abandoned the smallest one with strangers? Grounding is not enough. Cassie could have come to harm. And Polly wanted to be paid for abandoning her sister while Yoi dealt with a hospitalized child? Polly sounds like she has no bond whatsoever with either you or her siblings at all. Do her friends know what she did in order to free herself up to visit with them? NTA. This was an emergency. You were literally taking your other kid to the She potentially endangered your other daughter by leaving her with someone who is essentially a stranger and didn't even bother to get their phone number or give them yours. She should be grounded and a conversation should be had about what could have happened to the youngest when she just left her with someone. The fact that she had no concern or consideration for either sibling is worrisome. She disregarded her sister's safety and seemed completely uncaring of the fact that her brother was in the and had to be admitted overnight. NTA. Absolutely. Let me break this down. 1. Family emergencies are much more important than hanging out with friends. If my sibling was sick in the I wouldn't be able to hang out with others because I would be anxious and worried the whole time. I'm baffled at the way she was able to just brush off Trevor's illness with no concern at all for her little brother. 2. Honestly, if I had to watch my sibling due to an emergency, I wouldn't even ask to be paid. I would just tell my mom, "Go take Trevor right now. I got Polly. You make sure he's okay. Don't worry about us." Because that's what family does. This was only her second time babysitting ever. And it was only because the other sitters weren't picking up. The fact that she was going to be paid, especially $18 per hour, is huge. Let's say she watches Cassie 6 hours. Because we all know her wait times. She's made over $100. Why the hell would she say no to that? 3. You made a very reasonable compromise given the circumstances. On top of already paying your daughter, she can invite her friends over. So she can have a girls' night with her friends while keeping an eye on Cassie. Which would probably help Cassie too, since it would be good sister bonding time and distract Cassie from the fact her brother is in the not miss out on her plans. And make $100 on top of all that. That's a super sweet setup. Especially considering this was a family medical emergency situation. And she's being incredibly selfish and acting like the world revolves around her. 4. Don't even get me started on the neighbors thing. Yeah, your neighbors can seem pretty cool. Give a little wave every now and then. What if they're not as chill as you think? Especially considering no one in your family has ever talked to them? You don't know how safe their home is. They could have weapons not properly stored. They could have aggressive animals. They could be bad people. You know what I'm implying here. What if Cassie has allergies or food sensitivities? The neighbors don't know all of this. What if an emergency occurred with Cassie? They had no way to contact you and you had no way to contact them. That was extremely dangerous of Polly on so many levels, and at 16. She 100% is old enough to know better, but she simply didn't care. That is a terrifying thought. You are not overreacting. You are NTA. And if anything, Polly needs to be punished severely. She not only disobeyed her very gracious and generous mother, which, by the way, you didn't have to offer all the things you did. At 16, she is expected to obey her mother no matter what, especially during an emergency. She put her sister in so much danger. I can't even comprehend how she thought it was okay. She is lacking empathy, awareness, common sense, and caring for others. Polly needs a reality check now. NTA at all. You sound like a good mother, doing her best to be fair to all her kids. I've been a teen not too long ago. This is completely unacceptable behavior. I hope your daughter comes to her senses and learns sometimes there will be things like this. Emergency that come before silly friend plans. And it's moronic to just leave a literal child with strangers.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.